Hi, I'm Stephanie.
I'm Seth, and this is The Forever Young Show. The most powerful force in this world is a woman who knows who she is, why she is here, and what she wants to accomplish.
And that's where self-care comes in. As a woman, it is my opportunity and my responsibility to take care of me.
Self-care for your mind.
Self-care for your body.
Self-care for your money.
Our mission is to serve women as they fulfill their irreplaceable roles in families, society, business, the fabric of humanity.
So let's get this show on the road. We are meeting today here in the studio, thanks to Riverside, our online platform, with an absolute dear friend, Patty Boam, out of Idaho Falls. We'll just call it Idaho Falls. Can we just call it Idaho Falls? I know you guys, are you Idaho Falls
I'm in
proper
Idaho
still?
Falls.
Okay.
No,
She is a certified holistic health practitioner, health coach, life coach, herbalist, and published author. We're going to talk about that book. Having experienced childhood trauma that left her paralyzed and broken, Patty, as an adult, a wife, a mother of three, the ghosts of her past demanded her to choose the path of healing. Faced with choice between mediocrity and greatness, her personal healing journey began. And somehow it intersected with ours. Because this is not simply an interview where we get to meet an amazing person like we do in the show, but today we are here because we're here with one of our best friends in the world. And you and Curtis truly coming into my life, you know, when I was going through my divorce, pre and post, that you guys were angels. Like the old Alabama song, "There are angels among us." I count you two as winged angels. Are you going to show your wings on this podcast? Are we going to see the wings?
I don't think so. I didn't.
Well, and Patty was there for me a lot during the blending of our family. You know, those phone calls that I'd make driving down the road or pulling off on the side of the road, the tears and a lot of hope and a lot of really good insights. It's really helped me to become who I am today.
Thank you. It's been an honor. It's been a pleasure.
Have you seen The Chosen?
Yes.
Okay.
I just did 7 and 8 yesterday.
Yeah, so did we.
So good.
Yes.
So good.
All right. Everybody, if you are listening, watching this, and you have not seen The Chosen series, this is the New Testament, the Jesus series, right? You need to go. We highly implore you.
Yes.
Go watch it.
It's a must.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's a must.
If you've ever wondered about, if you grew up like we did in the Bible, and in the scriptures, in the revealed word of God, this show very tastefully and appropriately has deepened and widened my appreciation for how the gospel applies to the individual. To me, I look at that show, I'm like, man, I can see myself. I want to go get my linen, raiment and get in my sandals and just start walking around because you feel like you're there. But to see Jesus, to see the apostles, and of course it's a show. There are thematic elements, but I have never, honestly, in my entire life, having grown up watching Jesus shows, right? And many which have actually been very impactful in my life, or vignettes. This has been the most powerful experience and personal, and helped me to connect to God more than before that show came. So love it.
I would echo that for myself. It's made him more real to me. Not that he hasn't been real, because he's been a part of my life, deeply a part of my life, but to see him interact the way he does with personality and, in all sorts of situations, it's
I personally love the side of him of humor. Like,
yes.
I don't think that's really talked about, how I mean, why wouldn't he have some humor, right? And that
Absolutely.
really, really draws it home for me. I love to laugh.
Yeah.
I
I
love
think a
good,
lot
clean
of
humor.
times, yeah, excuse me. I think a lot of times he's portrayed as sterile, and this makes him real. It makes him emotional and caring, funny, yeah,
Inclusive.
inclusive.
I
Good
I
word.
think, and I felt this way long before The Chosen, but in the last 5 and 10 years, interestingly enough, having deep heartaches and trauma, and going through divorce and alienation and separation, and really just an incredible amount of loss and grief, and having come to know Jesus, and experienced his word in real personal ways.
Mhm.
And they portray this great on the show, and if you dive into the New Testament, you truly see this. But so many of the pious people, in the old / New Testament time, I guess we could say, they missed the mark, right? They were waiting for a Messiah, and they had this social construct of
Oh.
based on religious revelation, like, absolute revelation. I mean, Mount Sinai happened, folks. Those 10 commandments, that was real,
Mhm.
combined with the weakness of mankind and society, tradition upon tradition upon tradition in time, and they kind of lost sight of it. And I just have this feeling. We'll see. We'll see when he comes again. But I just think that we often miss how personable and tangible he is, and his law is. I mean, hey, I believe in the law. Like, it is, boom, like it is there. There is justice. There is mercy. I just think there might be a whole lot of people who are going to be really surprised at what things look like in the future, right? I mean, we know where you stand, from an organized, being deeply committed to your faith, not only an internal faith, but an external organized religion, right?
Mhm.
At the same time, I feel like, wow, Jesus is way above any of those limited beliefs or understandings that we have. And I just think, like the Pharisees and Sadducees in the New Testament, man, there are going to be a whole lot of people who just missed the boat, but thought that they were, doing the right thing, even if they were empty inside. I don't know. I don't know if
Yeah.
I put that the right way. I just have an appreciation for
And
life and
I'll
people.
take you back to trauma for just a second, Seth. It's been through trauma that I have gotten to know him on a very personal basis. And so, sometimes we can look at our rough situations and think, why me? Why are you doing that to me? But in the end, for me, what's happened is I have become very well acquainted with him and with his enabling power, his healing power. I don't know. I honestly don't know how you do life and trials without knowing him on a very personal basis.
Yeah, I think that we definitely have gone through that also through our own trials and traumas, and still going through that, working through them with the Savior and with our Father in heaven, and feeling, the enabling power of the atonement and how it gives us hope and power to move forward in a better way.
Well, we haven't addressed this yet, but you guys know Curtis passed away 2 years ago, and that has the only way through that really has been leaning in closer to the Savior. There's no way to describe what kind of a loss that was for me, but it's through him that I'm able to carry on every day.
So beautiful.
Anybody from Mexican today?
Curtis.
Mexican food. That's Curtis. Like,
Oh.
like, we can't talk about Curtis. Curtis, are you watching this episode?
I'm
I
sure
don't
he is. I'm sure he's sitting right here.
Right? That was my thought.
I'm just
He's with
imagining
us.
Curtis eating chips and salsa. Okay. Like, hey, Patty, Curtis, where do you guys want to go out? Like, why are we even asking this question? I could probably count on one hand of the many, many, many dinners we've done over the years, how many times they weren't at a Mexican restaurant if you guys were involved.
Yeah. He'd eat it 3 times a day, 7 days a week.
Oh my
So
goodness.
maybe the only one you didn't have was when we had a cookout in the backyard.
That might be the case. I think that's going to be one of the central subjects, and we're here for a few minutes today. But tell us about your relationship with Curtis, the friendship that you had, obviously, your marriage for decades, and well, let's start there, and then where does it go from there? I mean, in a short period of time, you had to, I don't want to say goodbye, but you had to say goodbye, at least for the rest of this mortal life.
We like to say, see you later.
That's right.
I'll see you later. Because it's not a permanent thing.
Where do I start with that? Yeah, Curtis and I were married for 42 years. We worked together. We had a family business, and so we were together a lot.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
How did you and Curtis meet?
Well, we first met in school. He would have been 8th grade. I'd have been 7th grade. Then we shared some classes his senior year, my junior year. He always had other girlfriends, and he always had a girlfriend. I didn't want a boyfriend because, anyway, but
I was about to start singing Puppy Love, but apparently the love part hasn't come.
No.
And they called it Puppy Love.
He was probably he teased me relentlessly through classes, but we were just really good friends. He went on his mission. We wrote the whole time he was on his mission. He had a girl waiting for him, so it wasn't a.
You were the friend. You were the friend.
Friend, yeah. So when he came back from his mission,
Where did he serve?
Chicago, okay. Minnesota, Midwest.
2 years of proselyting in the Windy City. Okay.
Yeah. And anyway, he called and asked me out. And I turned him down for Thursday night. I turned him down for Friday night. I turned him down for Saturday night. So he said, well, can I come go to church with you on Sunday? And I said, okay. So we went to church, and afterwards we were driving around, and he said, I want to see if we can be more than just friends. And I had a boyfriend. I had a boyfriend of 3 years. And I said, okay, what am I thinking? Anyway, the rest is history.
You're like, Curtis, listen, I'm getting back at you because, I've known you, we've known since the 8th grade, pal, and I've been sitting over here. I've been living my life, and now you're just waking up.
Yeah. Anyway, that was January of 1979, and we were married in November, of that same year. So that's awesome. That's how we met. That's how we came together.
All right. I love it. Learned a little bit more about you and Curtis.
Yeah. He was good. He was very, maybe I could say very emotionally unavailable in the early years of our marriage. And that was kind of a sore rub for me, if I might say. And in the later years, as the kids grew older, he had to kind of get emotionally involved with the kids and with me. And I always, and through that time, my abuse came up. And I always felt it's easy to feel alone when you're healing anyway, because the pain is so great. But I kind of felt alone. And years later, I said to him, it felt like because he was emotionally unavailable to me, that was a gift. Because if he had have pampered me or, tried to protect me, I don't think I would have dug down as deep as I did. So I said, he pushed me out of the nest and made me fly when I didn't think I could. And so I had to learn how to fly. And then, my healing helped him probably be able to be more emotionally involved as well. But, I say that even now, sorry, as he's passed, it's like he's pushed me out of the nest again and made me have to learn how to fly again, even at a deeper, more powerful way.
I will say that, and the reason I got on The Chosen is because I was gonna talk about Simon Peter, right? The Rock, right? Jesus gave Simon a new name, and it was Peter, right? Which means rock. And I was gonna say that you've been that rock for us in our lives. After Curtis passed, I felt, I guess I saw you out of the nest. I saw you in a different light than I've seen Patty before. I saw you vulnerable and aimless isn't the right word, but grieving in a way that I never really had.
It wasn't something I ever saw myself being a widow. We'd never had that conversation. Here's what you do for either one of us in that situation. And so I was pretty out of the nest, day by day, week by week, sometimes minute by minute. I've found the strength to fly again. I don't know. It rearranged everything. I don't think you go through loss like that and remain the same.
I feel like I can relate a lot to that going through my divorce. It's a different type of loss, but it's still a loss of a spouse.
Absolutely.
And, talking about going through loss or going through the trauma and feeling so alone. I remember going through my divorce, and my extended family knew about it, but we had all gotten together and the house was crowded. I come from a very large family. My dad comes from 13. He's one of 13. And so many grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, everybody running around and feeling absolutely alone.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very vulnerable place to be.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's one of the big reasons why I sought a deeper relationship with my Savior and my Father in heaven, was because they're the ones that filled me and helped me to not feel so alone.
Yeah.
And they, I can't remember how the quote goes, but something about, a light in the tunnel, and just having the Savior as that light guiding you through the tunnel to the other side. It's a very hard, painful experience and beautiful at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Had I not already known him, because through other hard times I've had in my life, I think the grief would have been even much harder without already having that relationship. But it definitely has deepened, even just in the last 2 years. So, yeah.
Let's talk about your book, From Trauma to Triumph. Where did that come from? Why did you decide to write a book, Patty?
Well, I've written a few. This particular one is when I was doing the life or the health coach course. That book was written as part of that health coach course. From Trauma to Triumph pretty much has several chapters in my life. Childhood trauma and healing that. My daughter's divorce and piecing her back together is a chapter of that. Losing a spouse is a chapter of that. And trauma trauma affects all of us a little bit differently, but it can be healed. That's the hope. It can be healed. It can be changed. It can be transformed.
That was a beautiful book that I got to read, and I gleaned so much from it. It really helped me through some of my own traumas while I was reading it, and to feel that hope and to see the outcome of your life made me like, okay, I want more. Okay, I need to do more. Okay, I can do this. That's kind of how I felt reading it. So thank you. Where can people find this book?
It's available on Amazon. And I've published it under my official name, which is Patricia. I go by Patty, but I decided to publish under Patricia. So you can find it on Amazon under Patricia J. Boam.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I'm glad it helped you, Stephanie. That was my hope, that my words would have some impact on others.
Oh, it definitely did.
What do you think the effect of, or how common, how rampant is, from a woman's perspective, from a girl's perspective, how rampant is childhood trauma in a young girl's life these days, do you think?
I think it's pretty big.
What do you think that we need to be doing about it? What do we need to be doing better?
That's a good question. I think, obviously, the internet has a big role to play. But as a parent, I think awareness. I think awareness is probably the biggest thing for all of us. If we're aware that those things are happening in the world, we better maybe zero in a little closer into home and into our girls. And that might not be a great, huge thing, but things can happen at school. Things can be said. Things can be, implicated. That trauma isn't what happens to us. It's how we perceive what happened to us. That's where the trauma is. And so, we might think something that was said we might laugh it off and say, oh, that's no big deal. But if that child or that young girl felt impacted by that in a negative way, it needs to be addressed. And the sooner the better.
I completely agree. I think another thing, and I feel like I see a lot of it, at least women around my age, is becoming cycle breakers, figuring out what things have been passed down and changing it, being that pioneer to, I don't know. I feel like even in my own life, going through my own experiences has created this lioness in me to open her mouth more and to not be okay, and to say, I don't care if I lose friends, if this is the right thing to do, and if this is going to protect somebody, whether it's my child or my family or somebody else, I'm going to do it because it's going to help someone else. I see a lot more women doing that nowadays, probably because of what they've been through themselves, and they don't want to keep continuing to pass that down generation to generation.
Yeah.
So I think that's a really big thing.
We either pass it on or we pass it back.
I love that.
And by not acting, we pass it on. Acting, we pass it back. Say, no, not going to do that anymore.
Chills. I've got chills. Thanks for sharing that.
You're welcome. That was my motivator early on when I started to remember and deal with my own childhood trauma. It was like, I don't want my kids to ever have to do this. And so I fought so hard in doing my own work. I was being an advocate for my children. And that really was a huge motivator for me to do as much work as I could to make myself better so that my children weren't affected by it. You can call it a chain breaker, but it's not easy to do that. But if you don't, it will carry on. So I chose to pass it back, as you guys have. I know you've made those same choices.
Definitely still on a healing journey and trying to figure out, continuously, what can we do to make ourselves better parents, better spouses, better friends, better son and daughter.
And you know what that is? Make you a better person.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what it is. The more we own about ourselves, and if it needs healed, heal it. If it needs changed, change it. That's how we make ourselves a better anything, whether it's friend, parent, grandma, is to change the things in us that need changed.
If you were to give I don't know, 3 simple steps, maybe it's 4, maybe it's 2, to addressing personal trauma to change yourself. And you're talking about, okay, let's change. How do you do that? Like, what are the steps?
Always the first step is awareness and acknowledgement. So if you know the things that are, just that constant rub, because when there's that constant rub, we're acting from a place of where the trauma happened, not from the current place that we're in. So the awareness of, ooh, yeah, that happened. Now what do I do with it? So awareness and acknowledgement is the first step. The second step is finding the way to heal that. And that's probably a bigger answer, because everybody's going to do it differently. I can go back to the medical model, and I told you earlier, I got the protocol. Protocol doesn't heal anyone. What might work for me isn't going to work for Stephanie. When I counsel or coach someone, I give my experiences, but I don't say, this is how you do it. I use stories or experiences as a way to help guide them so that their internal self, your soul, knows exactly what you need all the time. All of our answers are inside. As in my book, I walked through all of the different things that I went through. I started out with talk therapy, and that worked for a while. And then it didn't work anymore. And I prayed and I said, okay, what do I do? And I was led to a multitude of different things. I haven't stayed with one particular modality or one particular therapy for very long. I've let the Spirit guide me to what was needed next, and then what was needed next. I can tell you, even writing has been very cathartic. I journal. I journal probably every single day about my feelings, and being able to write them down and put them on a tab on a piece of paper. There's something that happens inside of you when you watch yourself write those things down, and how that can change. So I think that I guess you could call that the second thing. I think that's very, very varied in across the board. Acknowledgement and awareness is the first piece. The second piece, your soul's going to lead you there, and let it. It might be something you never thought that you would ever do, but let it. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Around Black Friday, I was just looking at different things. Excuse me. I was on Instagram looking at different things and having an open mind to know that, there's going to be sales going on and different things going on or being pushed around that time. And all of a sudden, this one girl popped up as a suggestion on Instagram, and she's called the Workout Witch. And she does somatic exercises. And I'm like, I had no clue what somatic exercises were. I'd never heard of them before, but instantly something inside me was like, you need to do this. And I was like, whoa. And so I, went on her website and started looking, and I've been doing her stuff, and that's helping me work through and pull up some of those really deep-seated traumas that I've been through. And
powerful work.
It's very powerful, very powerful. And I was just so amazed at how instantly I knew that I needed to do this work in particular for right now. And everything that she has posted has helped me also, it's rang true for me and helped me to not feel so crazy or, just very validating and has helped me through that. So the soul knows, even though sometimes it can be frustrating. It's like, oh, okay, I know my soul knows, but when is it? Like, what is it? Where is it? What's going to happen?
I know, because we want the answer like right now. Like, I got to know right now because we're uncomfortable. One of the things, back to your somatic exercises, one of the things that I did through the grief when it was just so heavy, and then adding the Ambien thing on top of it, and I was so out of control, was Qigong. I had to do that literally several times a day. And so I'd pull up a video on YouTube, and it seemed a little odd that that's what I was going for grief, because I don't know. I guess I didn't know how you healed grief, and you really kind of don't. You learn to live with it. But with Qigong, that realigns all of your energy meridians in your body, those movements. Same thing with somatic release. And so you're lining up your energy system in your body so that it can function normally. Sometimes it's just little things. Somatic exercise or 15 minutes of Qigong. Sometimes it's just letting yourself feel it and crying and I think we have to be strong, and crying is a sign of weakness, and actually it's a sign of strength.
I was going to say the same thing. Frequently people are saying, oh, if you need to go to talk therapy or if you need to do all these different modalities, then you're weak, you need help. And I'm like, no, do you know how much strength it takes to go through and do these things,
sister,
and to let all that come up and to process through it so it doesn't have the power over you like it used to? That takes real strength.
Yeah.
Real strength.
And in the end, it's harder to carry it than it is to let it go. It takes more energy to carry that around than it does to let it go and be healed. And you carry it for the rest of your life if you don't bring it up and let it be healed. I wrote down a quote the other day. I brought this with me, but I wrote down this quote from Marianne Williams that I thought was really good. It says, "It takes courage to endure the sharp pains of self-discovery rather than choose to take the dull pain of unconsciousness that would last for the rest of our lives." So maybe courage could be the first step and awareness the second. I don't know.
I'm processing this myself, because I think because I tend to live with the dull pain of not knowing how to solve some of these past traumas or lingering difficulties. And because I'm a high energy guy,
and you're a guy. I mean, guys don't. How did you like that scene with Thomas when he's grieving, and Peter's trying to figure out, how do I help him?
We're in The Chosen. We're back to The Chosen, folks.
We're talking about The Chosen.
Yes. Season 4. Season 4.
Was that difficult for you to watch him grieve like that? It was for me.
Oh, it was so hard for me. So hard.
Unconsolable.
Right. And because I don't know all of your traumas, but I know some of your traumas, and they're big. And I don't know if you've cried like that, but if you haven't, let yourself.
It's been a while.
I think
it's been a while. Yeah.
There's healing in tears.
In the movie, we were not even going to talk about The Chosen, right? Like The Chosen was not on, it wasn't on the show notes.
Honey, it was on the script, but not written down.
It was, there was a spiritual script that apparently I didn't see before the show. Producer, can we get the producer? There's a line. Obviously, this is not scriptural. Again, it's a show, but going to that vignette where Thomas is. Spoiler alert, by the way, Thomas is going to grieve, folks. In the shows, if you've not seen season 4, and they're like, what do we do? I think John the Beloved wanted to help Thomas. Simon Peter wanted to help Thomas, and Jesus says something like, there's no right way to grieve. Something like that's not a direct quote. That really hit me, but you need to grieve. Like there's no, you got to do this, and this, and this, or you need to grieve within these confines. So let him experience his grief. Because I truly believe, and I'm talking about what's in it for me at the end of the rainbow. What's the pot of gold for me at the end of the rainbow? Because I'm still going through it. I think there's healing, there is peace, but I think sometimes I'd like just to gloss over it and say, yeah, I'm at peace. I can accept it, but maybe have not been willing to really, truly allow the grief to settle, right? I mean, like just to settle and to sit. So that's why I was sitting back there speechless, because I was like, wow, yeah, I'm about to get real vulnerable, and we might have that crying session right now. So I'm gonna be quiet.
And it's okay if you do, but I do say if you need to, let it. The chemical compound of tears, it changes you. It changes. I mean, even just the chemical compounds of a tear, there's change in that.
It makes me think of Japanese culture and how they believe that water is very sacred and can be very healing.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's even from tears. It's a very cleansing, healing process to allow those tears to flow.
Yeah, very cathartic. He's still speechless.
I know. I'm kind of basking in this. I will say I used to think that, it would make me nervous. Like, he's not talking or he's not. And then I've realized I need to let him, the very few times this has happened, I need to allow him to experience that.
I can see he's processing. and I'll just say you're welcome.
Thank you.
Oh, I say that all the time.
That was Curtis, by the way.
Point well taken.
Still here. So can you share with us your experiences with overcoming self-doubt or imposter syndrome, and what advice you would have for women that are struggling with those issues?
There's a man that I should say a professional that I have seen in Salt Lake that sounded.
Hey, let's talk about your next relationship, Patty. So.
Mulder.
She said nothing was off limits. I got permission beforehand. I did.
I don't have that yet, so that'll be another podcast. When I went to him after Curtis passed, he set me on a course of finding out who I am, and I was a little miffed about that at first, because I was like, I came to you to help me with my grief. Why are we here? Why are you telling me I need to figure out who I am? Because did I not already do that? Have I not spent years of time doing that?
Yeah, decades.
And so for the last 2 years, it's been a whole different ball game of figuring out who I am. First of all, I had to own that I kind of hid behind Curtis. And I'm not saying this is bad or wrong. I think it's normal in a marriage relationship. I think it's, but I realized I would stand behind him and let him be my buffer. I let him tell me if things were safe or not safe. Or I let him be my barometer of, or, I don't want to do that. So you tell him I don't want to do that. And, I can see myself just kind of tucked behind his arm at his side, but tucked behind his arm saying, yeah, you do that for me. Well, I didn't have that anymore. I'm all I got. And I had to learn how to do that. And then I started to understand why I needed to know who I am alone. I knew who I was. I was Curtis's wife, and I let him, not inappropriately, but I let him lead. I let him be, because it didn't make me vulnerable. It made me safe. It made me, I that was one of the very first things that I kind of came up against. And it's been I will say it's been a beautiful process, but just in the last maybe 2 months, I just really felt I had a blessing, and the blessing said the very first thing was to bless me to know who I really am. And I was like, oh, man, am I still there? Do I still not know who I am? What the deal? And so I've been praying and I've been asking God, okay, who am I? Just tell me who I am. And then I thought, you know what? He's not going to do that. That's not who he is. That is not who God is. He's not going to tell me who I am. He's going to let me decide who I am, because that's my agency. So I sat down with a paper and a pen, which I do frequently, and I wrote down this list of who I think I am. Started with, I am a daughter of God. The second one was, I am a woman of faith. I won't tell you my whole list, but I started.
I kind of want to hear it.
You got to buy, let me guess, you got to buy the new and revised, the newly revised Trauma to Triumph book
No, but I do think I'm going to add this to the book because it's been such a powerful process. But I took each one of those and I spent a week writing, journaling about them, what that meant to me to be a daughter of God. And it has been transformational. I didn't want to hurry through it because I do have a tendency to, okay, I did that, let's move on, especially with grief, because you don't want to stay in it. And guess what? It's here to stay. Grief is the price we pay for love. I love him. I've loved him for years. I'm not going to ever stop loving him. I got to figure out some way to live without him here. And so I just spent the time and I'll go back if I feel so inspired. I'll go back and write about one of the things that on my list. I'm down. My third one was, I'm a healer, and that's the one I'm working on right now. I think it's back to your self-doubt question. It's easy to doubt ourselves. It's easy to think, oh, I'm not good enough, or I'm not. But I think sometimes we do too much comparing to others in who we see, but we don't see the pain they have usually. We all know how to put on that face of everything's great, and it's good that we can do that. But when we're really honest with ourselves, we know the pains we carry. We know the things that we have that are bothering us or holding us down or holding us back. But this process of me deciding who I am, and I wrote that when we decide that, God will validate, solidify, and add upon. But we have to choose who we are. Actually, maybe let me say that again. We get to choose who we are. He made us for something. And when we know who we are, that brings us closer to whatever that is that He made us for.
I always feel like this saying has really resonated with me the last few years. We've been sharing it with people. Stephanie and I were in Asia. We were in Thailand and Japan, did a 6-city tour for the
It
business.
looks fabulous, by the way.
It was
It looks
amazing.
fabulous.
We had our 2 youngest with us, 8 and, well, at the time they were 7. Well, Hannah turned 8 on that trip. She turned 8 in Japan. She celebrated her birthday in Tokyo, Japan.
No, good for
And
her.
then again in Thailand.
On a Sunday. Yeah. She got multiple. And she got home and she thought, hey, can I celebrate my birthday here now? It's like, oh, okay. Like she's taking that whole time zone thing to the max. But these 8-year-old and 6-year-old girls, and Stephanie, it was kind of we're in these business meetings with, a handful of people, tens of people to hundreds of people, 500 people. And it was like the Von Mulder family singers, right? The Von Trapp family singers, because we all had a part. We all had our little part, and everybody presented, everybody spoke. But Stephanie talked about this identity thing, about really dialing into who you are. And she walked them through an affirmation process, I am statements, and gave them some ideas. And the last one, what is the last I am statement on your list? We did not sync this up. So we'll see. We'll see if you give the right answer, if I'm going to have to give you the prices right.
I don't remember. There was a whole list. Oh. And I remember, after like speaking at one event and then going to another and having experiences in between. And I'm like, oh yeah, I want to add, this one or these two. Cause one was I'm a connector. I've realized I connect people, or I connect my family. And anyway, so I don't remember what the last one was.
So there were roughly 10. There were 7 to 10, and it did evolve. But at the end, not at the end, but at the end of that list, I am beautiful. I am a daughter of God.
I remember now.
But the last one, thank you. I just had to it's like coming out there in a cold winter morning and warming up the engine, right? It's gonna, it's like a diesel. Got to turn on the glow plug. So what was that last one?
Thanks for the analogy.
Thanks for comparing my wife to a diesel engine. Yeah, that's a good one. Good one. That's going to go far. Great. Way to do it like a dude.
So this last one that I added, I think I did after the first one. I just had this intuitive thought from God that I needed to start saying, and I am me. I am me. There's power in I am me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And one of those, and we did some interviews after with some women, and some fantastic Japanese women, because of course 90% of the people we were meeting with were women. That's what we do, in our professional business. We work with women for health outcomes and for, business outcomes, financial outcomes. But really what it comes down to is empowerment and identity. But I remember this woman saying, my favorite thing that you said, Stephanie, was I am me. It was like a revelation to her.
She started crying. I started crying, knowing, I'm sure she's not the only one that was impacted, but to know, like, God gave me that inspiration, not just for myself, but for her.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
A wonderful wife, a mother, growing into her own, realizing that the role of mother, sacred, wonderful, special, is not who she is. It is a role that she fills as well, but it is not the completeness of who she is. So I think saying, I am me, identity unlocks your destiny.
And if we go back to the question you asked about what can we do better to help young girls, this is it. Teaching, helping them know who they are is it's critical in today's world where, I mean, if you go back to me before I lost Curtis, I was his wife. That was one of my identities. And when that got taken away, guess what? I had to go deeper inside. And so I think that's a lifelong process for all of us to figure out who we are. And it's not a cookie cutter to do that. It's an internal process that is beautiful.
Yeah, I I can totally relate to that. When I was going through my divorce, I had an uncle who at the time was the only other member of my father's family who had been through a divorce. It was such a gift that he sat down with me, and that was the first thing that we did was he said, "Stephanie, you need to figure out who you are." And I was like, whatever. I know who I am. And he's like, "Stephanie, I know that you know who you were when you were married to Andy, but who are you now? Who are you?"
Yeah.
And he encouraged me to make that list of who I am. And that completely changed the way that I looked at myself and the way that I looked at my life and the whole process of going through this rebirth of who I am. And then, just talking about it now, just looking at the different patterns in my life that God has given me the opportunity to look at who I am, going and getting married to a wonderful man, that's a whole nother process. But then you add on top of it that we both have children that we're bringing together and trying to blend a family. Let me tell you, that was a huge, who am I? Who am I?
Yeah.
And,
Talk about force you inside instead of outside.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Yep. And then, experiencing other things along the way, just some things that, like I said, made that lioness in me like, okay, I'm ready to come out now.
Oh, she came out.
She's not going back in. I'll tell you that.
No, don't do that. No.
Yeah. One day I'm like after the roar, like after the roar.
Hey, at the beginning, it took me a while to figure out, feeling like I can't talk and this lioness has been suppressed for decades. And then all of a sudden feeling this power and feeling like, don't you anybody get in my way or you're going to find, who I really am. But so at the beginning, that's what I was getting at. At the beginning, it was probably a little more than it needed to be. But at the same time, that's how I needed to figure out.
The pendulum swings.
Exactly.
How loud you can go.
Well, not just how loud I can go, but how loud do I need to be to feel that person that I am inside, to feel strong and to feel safe and to feel, to really see who I am and how I can lessen that roar to still
channel
feel
it.
me.
Sure. No, it's great. It's awesome. I'm like, it's awesome. Like, great. I do remember looking at her and I said, so is this how it's going to be from here on out? Like I just need is this what it really looks like?
Said only if it has to be.
Ooh, yeah.
You've had your warning.
Wouldn't have it any other way.
Absolutely.
Wouldn't have it any other way.
Absolutely.
Powerful relationships come from powerful individuals.
That's well said.
Yeah.
And one thing I do want to bring this out, Patty, because like there was no in your experience, you're talking about I was Curtis's wife and I did hide. I mean, again, that's part of your journey. It's part of your process. But again, to me as your friend and as somebody who was in need, you were the rock, right? So I think it's important that we allow ourselves grace for where we've been, for how we felt, for where we've come up short, and then still realize that, you know what, like I like to say this, I'm perfect. I'm perfect in this very moment. Now, we all know that I am not without mistakes, blemish, challenges, failure. When I say I'm perfect, I'm perfectly aligned with and perfectly present and perfectly willing to accept that tomorrow I'm going to realize that today, I needed to change, right? I was this, but now I am literally evolving into, that new creature. So I guess I just wanted to honor you because as Curtis's wife, one of your roles, you were amazing, right? But God just said, okay. And Curtis is like, okay, here we go, right? You ready for that high growth zone time,
I guess that's what they both determined, because that's exactly what it feels like I've been in, is this high growth zone for the last 2 years. I miss him terribly. I still wish he were here, but I also know that I would have never grown the way I have over the last 2 years if he were still here. That doesn't diminish him at all.
Yeah.
I think it accentuates the power of a human soul, that through grief, I have grown into who I am more than ever before.
And when that reunification comes, how sweet it will be.
Can't wait. But I will.
We're glad.
Like I
no
have
more
a choice.
Ambien. Hey,
No.
Ambien.
No.
I'm really grateful that you share that with us, because honestly, I never would have perceived you that way, that you were hiding behind Curtis. And it really gives me a lot of hope for myself, because I feel like that's something that I've done with Seth is, he's always been the big leader in our business. He's been the big leader in our home and in our community. And I'm finding that I keep receiving opportunities to come out from behind him. And anyways, it gives me a lot of perspective and gratitude.
I don't think there's anything wrong
through.
with doing that. I think it's kind of a natural thing, and that is the role of a man, to preside, provide, and protect. However, when I didn't have that, I had to come out, and I'm grateful. So I will invite you to do that a step at a time, knowing that he's still going to play that role if he needs to.
Is that really what I sound like?
Listen, beauty's in the eye of the beholder. Like, the person with the ears is the one who interprets what it sounds like. No, it sounds like is when we were with our grandchildren, with Lincoln, and we were on vacation, Airbnb and in McCall, Idaho. Right. And we were playing, I think there was a safari show on the TV or something at the Airbnb or something, or a book.
Maybe a hunting thing.
Yeah, hunting thing, and safari and the Serengeti or whatever, and they're lions. And so we started playing like grandpa's going out, I'm a lion, right? And that was all fun. And
Lincoln's a toddler.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's like 3 years old. I mean, he's a strong-willed 3-year-old. Like this no pushover kid. Like, yeah, he knows.
He was born with his roar.
Like, okay, we talking about identity. That kid's dialed in, right?
Good for him.
Anyway, it was just funny. I started acting like a lion, and did I roar at him?
Yeah.
What did he do back?
He was like,
yeah, I almost put it was like. Like, when grandparents turn into scary figures, right? That's exactly what happened. And then I pretended I was on a hunt and took down, our 17-year-old Isaac, like he was a gazelle, and I started like, rah, 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 and this kid, speaking of childhood trauma,
Well, I will say that one of the things that Seth has been involved in this to help me to come out of, behind him and and to find the leadership within myself is doing this podcast, to be quite honest. It is not a comfortable thing for me. I'm very good with being open and vulnerable in small groups and personally face to face, but to be willing to put this out there for anybody, has been a really big deal for me, and has helped me to also ask myself, who am I? Who am I, and how am I going to let people's reviews or comments or thoughts affect me? And am I going to? So this definitely has been one of those.
I just want you to know, I can see the growth in you in this today. So
thank you.
Way to go.
That means a lot.
In spite of the trolls. The trolls. Little trolls under the bridge, right?
Yeah.
How can women advocate for their own health and navigate the healthcare system effectively?
I think the more they know who they are and what works for them, the greater they can do that. I mean, I've always known that I didn't do pharmaceuticals well. And, I just have every side effect that can be. And had I been in my right mind, I probably would have never taken that. But I hadn't slept for a while, and I knew it was, I would sleep. It was fitful sleeping at best. So, I gave it a shot. And the first thing I'll do ever, if I'm ever faced with that again, is I will look up the side effects first and foremost. It taught me. But I think, again, the more we know who we are and what works for us, and the protocol doesn't work because we are individuals. And for me, that's the beauty of alternative modalities, is it adapts to the fact that we are individuals.
We always like to put it this way. Stephanie was repping for this question. And this segment is sponsored by CEO, because you are the CEO of your health. And back to our program. I mean, yeah, you are. I mean, men, women, girls, you need to know who you are, and you need to know how your body works. You need to be educated about your body. I mean, that's some of the awesome work and the work that Stephanie and that we're doing in Africa, planning another trip. You coming to Africa with us?
Ooh,
do it.
I didn't know you were going, but it sounds intriguing.
Yeah. So I went to Africa in June on a humanitarian trip with a family friend, and I'm just hooked for life. Like, after a few days being there, Seth and I FaceTimed because he stayed here with the kids, and he was like, "Stephanie, you're glowing." I was like, how can I not be glowing?
No.
How can I'm here to serve and to love on people. Like, I've been so richly blessed, and it was so humbling. In a nutshell, that's what I'll say.
Awesome.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
June,
June.
will. Yeah, she said yes. All right. We'll talk about it.
Okay.
Going back to, knowing who you are and knowing what works for your body and your health and everything. I also feel like the more that I found out who I was, the more intuitive I've become about how my body feels around certain people, or how it reacts with things that I consume, whether it be food or treats or media,
Wi-Fi.
anything. Yeah, Wi-Fi.
EMF.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I had one sister who, she's always been ahead of the curve, doing the whole bone broth thing and to heal your gut. And, she did photography at the time, and she would sit in front of the computer, and she's like, I can't sit there very long because the EMFs, like, they're just affecting me. And I've always believed her because I trusted her, but at the same time, it didn't make sense to me because I'm like, I haven't really heard of that, and I've never experienced it, and here, 15 years later, and I'm like, I can feel it. I can't be, I'm so highly sensitive to it. And I think a lot of that is because I'm knowing who I am. And so I know how things are affecting me physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually.
We are multifaceted human beings. That's great. I'm glad to hear that you're that in tune, that
Sometimes,
because then you get it on the front end instead of the back end, and then you have a lot of makeup to do when you get it on the back end.
yes.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely, because I feel like a lot of it I am experienced on the back end, but it's also helping me to prevent anything further down the road, or even helping my children.
Pattern interrupt,
Yes. Yes.
I mean, you've got a life coaching background, so you're touching on the emotional side of things, and not just emotional, but intuitive, intellectual. From a natural health coaching, herbology, etc. I mean, I think I know where you're going, but this is near and dear to our hearts as part of our mission in our business and in this show, preventative. So weigh in on, I don't know if you've got a story you want to share or just a sermon on preventative mindset and preventative work when it comes to, I'm going to say, physical health, as opposed to a fix it when it breaks kind of approach, which, we have both of those. We kind of have these, there's a lot of people in both segments, right? In throughout the world, we see this throughout the world, and like, what's your take on that, Patty?
I think this is the gospel of Patty. All of our emotions, our experiences, all of those things have an impact on our physical health. And 80% of widows have a major health breakdown after the loss of a spouse.
Wow.
Now, I'm not going to claim the Ambien thing as one for me, but I didn't have one. And I'm grateful. I could have, but it goes to how much our emotions, our spiritual health, our mental health, it all impacts our physical health. And so you can't fix one without it affecting the other. My belief is if I'm taking care of my emotional health, that changes my physical body. My mental health, it changes my physical body. I think our physical body is actually a canvas for all the rest of them. And whatever those things are, it's painted in our physical health. Taking care of all of those aspects is it's paramount for physical health. And vice versa. I mean, our physical health, as it breaks down, and I'm not saying, some people they're born with diseases or that kind of thing. So that excludes, those things are excluded from what I just said. That's not a blanket statement, but I think for the majority of us, when we can take care of our mental health, it helps our physical health. It helps our emotional health. It helps our spiritual health. If we take care of our spiritual health, it all is a trickle down thing, no matter which one we start on. You talked about somatic exercises and how that helped. So you can start on the physical level for sure. And that goes through and helps all the rest of them as well.
I love what you said about, the body being a canvas. That really hit home for me. Just a good picture. I'm a visual person. And so being able to see that, really put things into perspective for me in a way that I hadn't thought about. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So you can't fix one without influencing positively another, right? Like there's there is this aura that if you focus on the physical, it will affect some of those spiritual or emotional aspects. At the same time, you can't fix one and ignore another and expect to get the full result, right?
Yes.
Even in that one area, like
Yes.
the apex of health, spiritually, physically, emotionally, mind, body, spirit, only happens when they're all interconnected and working in unison. You can only get so high if you're lifting weights only, right? Like,
yeah.
I never thought about it that way. Here's my favorite quote from this entire thing. And there've been a lot, by the way. This one hit me powerfully. Grief is the price we pay for love. Anybody who's grieving, say that 10 times today.
It's love with no place to go. And so I had to turn that love inside and see, to help me discover who I am at a deeper level than I'd ever done before.
I think that's one reason why when I went to Africa and I was able to go and make such an impact on so many lives, even just by going and smiling or playing with a child or holding a baby or whatnot, that I think that really helped me to take that love that I haven't been able to give to certain individuals and be able to spread it to others that I knew that it would impact. I could see on them while I was there doing it and how it impacted them for the good,
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And I think also knowing that the work that we were doing there, so the organization, the nonprofit organization that I went with and that Seth and I are now on the board with, the main thing that we do there is drill water wells. And I got to help start a water well and do the whole witching with wires. And it's a hand crank, how they put the pipes down. And I got to help put the first pipe down, and knowing just the impact that it was going to have on thousands of people for the one well that I got to do, and how it was going to help, especially the women and these girls for generations to come. That changes you. That changes you when you're a part of something that's way bigger than you and impacting so many other people from such a small sacrifice, that you're able to do.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank
Putting
you.
a well in a community or in a school, in this case, minimum 2,000 kids, better teachers, because teachers want to teach at schools that have clean water. It means obviously the health ramifications. It means that girls get to go to school, because girls don't have to stay home and help mom haul water for an hour, 2 hours, or 3 hours, or 4 hours. Girls can go to school. They can get an education. They can be safe. There's a whole safety aspect. So,
so many things.
That's powerful.
It is. And I think that's why I keep okay, we got to go back. Okay, I want you to go with me now, Seth. Okay, when can we take the kids? Who else can we gather to go with us?
Yeah.
Well, maybe one last question. You identify, you, as you're writing down who you are, you said, I am a healer. What is the next chapter for Patty Boam when it comes to healing? What are you passionate about? And what's the next step as you fulfill that identity?
Well, I don't know that I can tell you what the next step is, other than me to continue my own personal discovery. And as that happens, I think it opens up for me in a different way. I've always, Curtis always encouraged me to do this. He was always, I think if he were here, he'd probably say, oh, geez, Patty, I've been standing behind you, pushing you forward, So
I love that.
I have some things that kind of float around. I am, like I said, revising my book From Trauma to Triumph. I do want to put in some of the things that I've learned over the last 2 years, especially this, who am I? I think that has been a big piece for me. So I'm not sure where it will all go. As I have written about being a healer, I was reminded, even back as a younger girl, I knew things about other people and how to help them and how to encourage them to reach their potential. I dated a guy he was the most amazing artist. He could sit down with a pencil and just sketch out. I had him sketch this little old woman from a National Geographic magazine, and it was just amazing how quickly and how perfectly he transferred that photo to a piece of paper. And I was constantly trying to encourage him to reach for more and be better. And then that's what my life has turned out to be is I've had to do those things. I've had to take those steps. I've had to know that on a real tangible. And I hope that is maybe my legacy, is that I've been able to add something to someone else and their well-being, meeting their potential, letting them know that they're loved. It doesn't matter what we've been through. It's they matter. Everyone matters. Everyone has a place. Everyone has a purpose. And that's what makes the world a better place, a safer place.
Absolutely wonderful. I'm excited to see what you do here on out through your continued high growth zone. And I am so excited to read the stuff that you add to your book. I really am. I'm like,
oh, thank you.
When you said you're doing that, I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
Really looking forward to that.
There's some outdated pieces. It has my old website, and so I'm going through and revising it. I was already in the process of doing that, so it's interesting how this came about. I appreciate you guys so much thinking of me, and really appreciate our friendship through the years. I really do. But if I'll let you know when the revised edition is available, but it shouldn't take me too long. But anyway.
Well, consider this the pre-sales marketing Genesis right here. We are doing pre-sales right now. Everybody, let's build it. So love it.
So Patty, what is your website? How can people reach out to you or get more information on what you do or what you offer?
I don't have a website currently, but I do have an Instagram page that's called Joyful and Genuine. If you're not genuine, there's not a lot of joy to be found.
Love it.
So that's where, and I will post when the revision is complete. I will post there. And I don't know yet about a website.
Okay.
I have a whole program that I wrote prior to Curtis passing. I'm digging out the archives.
Yes.
Currently, so I'm finally at a point that I feel like I can do that. I have a brain enough to do that. There's a thing called widow brain that's real. The trauma is so great that it shuts down the frontal lobe of your brain so that you can function, and that sometimes is a barely functionable. But I think I'm ready to do the next steps. So we'll see.
Wonderful.
Well, thank you. That's it's encouraging. Like this is what a blessing. And we didn't get into widow about just very much as maybe we could, because that's another episode.
That's a whole other animal,
right? Yeah. But I think this is encouraging for those who've experienced loss. Obviously, losing your spouse, but any loss, there's a common thread there. But to see you as this incredible leader of a woman that we've known for years, and yet, experiencing loss, grief, deepening of love, kind of the rebirth like a phoenix, right? One thing
rise from the ashes,
burns down, and then another grows and rises from the ashes. And thanks for letting us get a sneak peek. Like this is the producer's cut of your life and your work and your ministry, that we get to have a kind of a backstage conversation. Like, you don't have to have it all together. We don't have, we don't have to have every single piece in order to live meaningful lives. And
that's true.
So thanks for giving us that reality of where you are. And we're excited to continue to follow and to learn and to share it with others.
Thank you for saying yes.
I'll probably just end with this. And Patty, you're welcome.
Oh, that was perfect.
Funny thing is, he likes to tell everybody that, all the sassiness from our children comes from me. I'm like, I'll take a good chunk of it, but you've got plenty of your own, honey.
That's right. That's right.
My goodness.
That's right.
And cut. It's a wrap.
Thank you so much for being here today. And thank you for sharing this episode with that one friend who needs this conversation. Thank you for all the ratings, the reviews, the comments, and especially the support. We so appreciate you.
Now, if you want to take a peek behind the curtain and be the first to know about special previews, backstage updates here at the show, and especially some private collection content that doesn't come out in the regular show,
be sure to join our VIP community at theforeveryoungshow.com.